Once again, welcome to the Digital Customer Experience Podcast with me, Alex Turkovich. So glad you could join us here today and every week as we explore how digital can help enhance the customer and employee experience. My goal is to share what my guests and I have learned over the years so that you can get the insights that you need to evolve your own digital programs. If you'd like more info, need to get in touch, or sign up for the weekly companion newsletter that has additional articles and resources in it, go to digitalcustomersuccess.com. For now, let's get started. Greetings and welcome to episode 63 of the Digital CX podcast. My name is Alex Turkovich. It's so great to have you back this week and every week. Today, I'm excited about a conversation I had with Haydar Al Saad, who is founder of Revsetter. Revsetter is one of a new generation of CSPs that we see coming up, and one that is specifically focused on revenue growth, which is super, super cool given all the, talk about revenue in the industry over the last few years. So we obviously get into that. His background is very much in accounts and CS, and so he's a founder who there's a lot of founders who are in product who found their way into CS. He's been in CS and found his way into founding a CSP devoted to it. And I hope you enjoyed this episode with Haydar Al Saad, because I sure did. All right, are you ready, sir?
Yes, sir.
I want to welcome you to the Digital CS podcast. It's nice to have you. I've been looking forward to this conversation for a while.
Great to be on, Alex. Appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to joining and having a conversation with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for those that don't know, you're founder and CEO of Revsetter, and we definitely want to get into that a little bit, but would love a little bit more on your background, because there's some interesting stuff there. I mean, you're California-based today. You spent some time in Stockholm, I see. And you're just all over the place. So would love for you to give the crowd a bit of a background. So,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So like you said, I've been a little bit all over the place in terms of where locations and where I've worked in the different markets. I'm from Sweden, so that's kind of where I grew up and started my journey some 15, 16 years ago, post college there. Spent a couple of years. Actually, first in private equity, kind of got into that randomly during college and got to manage, but right away from a customer perspective. So I got to manage a team of about 10, 15 people working with different portfolios and companies and whatnot. And kind of pretty quickly felt I want to get on the operational side and kind of build my career there. So switched over to a SaaS company, global company called Meltwater back in the day, global leader in media intelligence. So that's where I started. But my now wife, back then girlfriend, we together a long time, we both wanted to come to the States and work in this market and be here. So I got to move with Meltwater pretty early on after a year being there. So that's when we kind of started our journey in the US some 13, 14 years ago. And It's been great since. I've had a chance to be in Miami and San Francisco and kind of in the central hub of SaaS and tech for a few years as well. And then now we're based in LA and Santa Monica. But throughout that entire journey, I got the chance to really work and kind of function all the different go-to-market capabilities and functions there, right? So from initial sales, then to the majority on the post-sales side and running regional teams, US, Canada teams, global teams, and everything from small ones, 5, 10, 15, 20 people teams, up to global teams with a few hundred people and half a billion renewal base and sales and across all different segments. It's been a really fun journey, switching from early days of private equity to really SaaS and go to market and spending time on that operational side. So I've had that chance to work with a lot of different perspectives and scales, which has been great, just in particular since I'm very passionate about post-sales as well. Yeah. So it became a very good fit for me building my career and my years through that.
Yeah, it's cool because it's rare that you see a leader who has spanned the divide, so to speak. You put in your time in sales, you put in your time in customer success and post-sales. And I would imagine that gives you a maybe not a unique view on revenue, but you probably have a deeper understanding of what it means to really drive revenue than, let's say, some others out there. You've got that complete picture. Is that something that you've kind of I guess purposely, did you purposely kind of try to go pre to post sales, or did you just naturally kind of want to explore both? What was that journey?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's definitely gives you kind of a fuller perspective on the revenue journey. I like to talk about that a lot, the kind of full revenue journey from initial lead all the way to close to
Yeah.
onboarding, renewal, and beyond. And I think that perspective is important, but sometimes lacking just because you kind of come up and you stay with one side or the other of the business. So I try to kind of pretty early on, started on the sales side, but I was always curious about the customer side. And one of the main things as I started my career in SaaS pretty quickly, and I'm good with numbers and try to see a bigger picture, I realized, well, majority of the revenue in most SaaS businesses is on the customer side. While I got my kind of training and development and notched all the things I need to do on the sales side, I was always looking at the customer side as well, and wanted to make that switch, and made that switch to get that full picture, but also be part of the main revenue driver really in a business, which
Yeah.
is SaaS customers. And then I think just by happenstance, the different roles and promotions, and I was kind of developing through my career, gave me an opportunity to, after I've done sales and CS, to do full go-to-market and manage both sales and CS teams and post-sales teams at the same time, which I think is also one of the things that sometimes can be hard if you're, as a manager or leader, only managing people within your function. And that's kind of the only things that you've seen, that then your perspective is within that. But as someone that's done both sides, when I was managing teams on both sides as well, there's a lot of cohesion between the teams, and there's a lot of things and synergies that you can
Yeah.
create within your overall function, your overall journey flow for customers that benefits. So I've always tried to kind of merge those two things together and try not to think of it in silos, but rather as one big journey, and a business that's connected in different ways. And fortunately, I've had that opportunity to do that a lot in my career, and it's panned out well, because I think it's given me a good ground for what I'm doing today, but also some of the other
Yeah.
startups and things I've done along the way as my kind of a side job to my day job, which has always been really focused on startups and building, and I have some other companies that I've done, and I try to marry those two perspectives together.
Yeah. I mean, it's one customer journey. It's not like
Yes,
they don't stop between, like the train's moving. So you might as
exactly,
well
exactly.
support
You
your
don't jump
customer.
off, and then you're at the end station there when it's signed, or then as a new customer that comes on. I
Yeah.
think a lot of companies, Alex, that is kind of how, even if you speak about it as one journey, or you have the intention of it, that's great. That's a starting point, and a key thing, of course. But then how you're actually structuring your teams, your
Hmm.
resources, your methodologies, your workflows, all that stuff, systems play into it. And unfortunately, in too many places, those two things are still very siloed, and they're not connected, which then creates that chasm between them.
Yeah. I mean, you said something interesting that I wanted to dig deeper in on,
Mhm.
which was this notion that most of the money sits in post sale. And I think a lot of folks, even who work in SaaS, I think I would imagine founders get this by and large, but I think for the most part, people who work in SaaS, they have this kind of traditional view of, okay, sales, that's who brings the money in, and then we deliver the product or whatever it is. But
Yeah.
it would be interesting to do a correlation on companies who have invested very heavily in customer success and post sale and
Mhm.
really driving revenue retention versus those that haven't, in terms of what their churn rates are. And I'm sure that analysis
Right.
exists. I'm sure Greg Danes could pull
Yeah.
it out of his hat. But I guess the point I'm making is I think a lot of people just don't maybe take the time or really get into the weeds on that. They don't see the fact that, yeah, you know what? It's important to fill the funnel, but once
Yeah.
the funnel's full, you got to nurture it.
100%. No, I think that's definitely the case. And I think sometimes, because naturally, like, if you think about it, a lot of the CEOs out there, not all, of course, but a lot of them have come from a sales background, not a CS background.
Mm,
A lot of the CROs today being promoted are VPs of sales before, and that's kind of the prism that they have. So naturally, the feeling is sales drives everything, and sales is critical, of course, right? Because that's kind of the fuel, right, that you're
yeah.
adding to the company every year. But as you get to a certain stage and scale, and for someone like myself that's worked with 10, 15, $20 million ARR bases for a company, and 500-600 million or a billion in ARR base, it's as you start scaling, it's impossible to do it without the customers growing and without your net retention being good. And there's definitely a lot of numbers around that in terms of growth, ARR growth connected to net retention numbers. And when those are good, how your growth expands over time. But I think that's a dynamic that sometimes you miss until you're at a stage where your growth slows and you start analyzing why you're not growing. And then you uncover this massive hole, which is your retention.
Yeah.
And on the customer side, where you've underinvested for a long time. And the bigger that ship is at that point, as we know, the harder it is to move it, because in CS versus sales, everything is lagging. So whatever you're doing today in CS, in 6 months, you'll probably see the results of that effectively, right? Whereas in sales, you can make quick changes and see quick results a lot of times. And that's, I think, something that a lot of people get there. And that's when their eyes kind of open up a little bit and say, oh, wait, we have an issue now, and this is why we're having this issue.
Yeah, for sure. The word compounding comes to mind. If you have a good sense for what compounding is all about, then you will invest in your post-sale teams.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I definitely want to get into, what you and the team are building at Revsetter. But one of the things I love having founders on, especially founders that are catered towards solving specific problems in CS and other places, because a lot of people have this notion that digital CS is just like a set of automations and a set of things that you do and whatever. But digital CS is also the tools that you surround yourself with and the technology that you surround yourself with in order to make your team successful and to be successful. That said, I wanted to ask you the question that I ask all of my guests, which is, what would be your own definition of digital CS if you had to explain it to somebody in an elevator for 10 seconds?
Yeah, no, and that's a great question, because I think it's interesting, right? I think it's a term right now, digital customer success, that's thrown around a lot. People talk about it in different ways, and there's really no clear definition of what it is. But for me, kind of how I would define it, digital customer success is really about, I would say, both the art and the science of how to elevate, improve, and really increase efficiencies with your workflows, your processes, your methodologies, and how you do that through digital systems and resources like platforms, apps, software, AI, and beyond.
Yeah.
So I think it's something that could take many different shapes and forms, but that's kind of my general definition of how I look at digital customer success.
I like that blanket term of efficiency, because it can denote so many things, but ultimately what you're trying to do is you're trying to really drive customer value in the most efficient manner, and that's through efficiencies in your customer facing stuff. But then, especially in Startupville, resources are limited, so you gotta be as efficient as you possibly can.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's, I think, one of the things too, right? When you think about efficiency, a lot of times we equate that to just saving time or do things faster or fewer steps, right, to get something done. But what you see when you work as a startup plan, myself now, or when I've worked with large enterprise customers and processes, it's really about making the process more seamless for the customer, right? Easier for them to do things. And that can sometimes mean fewer steps, right? Like on Amazon, you can click one time and buy something. That's really efficient.
Yeah.
But when you look at, let's say, onboarding a platform, sometimes actually doing a few extra steps will guide the user to do less mistakes and to the process more seamless overall, and actually complete it faster, because you're avoiding some of those things that might happen when you're reducing steps. So I think depending on your customers, kind of the way that you think about it, you just think about it from the perspective of making things more seamless for them to accomplish what needs to happen.
Yeah.
And you do that in the most efficient way. That's how I think you can really leverage digital CS through those technologies and workflows in the best way possible.
It's really, so well said. I mean, that you would think that the best way to onboard a customer is like the fastest path to like getting users to log in and all that kind of stuff. And in some cases, I guess you could say that's correct. Yes. But there are those things that, as having built your product and knowing your product, that if they do this, that'll make their downstream journey that much simpler. And so focusing on those
Mhm.
things is super important. Do you want to give I don't like putting words in founders' mouths about what it is they're building. So do you want to give us like a little bit of a sense for what Revsetter is all about and what you're focused on?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to. Revsetter as a founder, it's interesting because it came about from my experience being on the other side, right? As an executive, go-to-market leader, buying different technologies, especially on the post-sale side. And the reason why we built Revsetter, what we are, we're a very revenue-focused customer success platform. And what we focus in on is really both sides of CS. So
Mm.
we have CS teams that don't have revenue responsibility that can be inside Revsetter and use the tool and work with everything that you would equate with that, right? From health scores and journeys and all the things that you want to do, success plans, playbooks, etc. But also the other side of the CS coin, which is the revenue side. Sometimes that will be referred to as account management. Sometimes that's CS with revenue responsibility, whatever you call or kind of talk about that role in that context of. But driving renewals, expansion, net retention, and doing those things. And we try to kind of build all that into a really modern, easy to use and powerful platform that really takes a modern approach to how you do CS and really frame it around the different roles that you have in post sales and different goals that they have, all working within one platform with one
Mhm.
data set and finding those synergies together. It's really a modern CS platform today. We're also really excited because one of the things that we've seen is how buyers and users, how their behavior is changing, right? Where from the old school sales led and sales bot motions that we've seen to now actually users being more sophisticated, expecting a lot more from time to value. You don't want to spend 2, 3 months setting up a new platform and maybe 6, 9 months to get value from your CS platform, but you want
Yeah.
to get it started right away.
Right.
You want to start getting value very quickly. So we're also actually launching the first PLG version of a CS platform here in next couple of months, which we're super excited about, and really enabling all the users out there, whether you're an individual CSM, a director, team level, or higher, to start using Revsetter for free. There's free packages, there will be different paid plans and all that stuff, and enterprise, of course. But I think that's one of the things that we really try to focus on is building it in such a modern and customizable way to really allow for anyone to use it with different kind of options and functionality that fits what they need,
Mhm.
and they can scale from there. So that's kind of what Revsetter does today. And it's interesting as well because we have a lot of other teams now starting to use it. So we have more of a go-to-market product as well and CRM product coming, expanding from the CS scope for sure.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, ultimately, if you can have all your teams in one place, that's ideal because then you don't have to worry about integrations and those
Yeah,
weird field handoff things and all that kind of stuff. That
yeah,
makes a lot of sense. And I
yeah,
love the notion of PLG. I mean, it's kind of what HubSpot has been doing, right? It's super easy to sign up for HubSpot, but
yeah,
it's kind of
yeah.
hard to leave.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and HubSpot, is one of the inspirations for that, right? And like I
Hmm.
said, as someone who's been on the other side, I always found it curious that you look at the CRM space where Salesforce was obviously the initial big giant, and then you have HubSpot, Monday.com, so others coming now. But
Hmm.
HubSpot came and said, you know what, we're going to do go to market a bit differently. And of course, they were targeting a little bit more SMB mid market versus enterprise,
Yep.
but they did that and they did that. Kind of launched it and obviously very successful, right? And now potentially going to be acquired by Google as it looks like in the
Yeah.
very soon. So that'll be an interesting move. But then you look at the CS space and everyone and Gainsight obviously initially came about and became the Salesforce of the space
Yep.
and modeled after Salesforce, but everyone else just modeled right after the same exact thing. And now it's really hard for any of the legacy players to change, right? It's hard going from a specific product that you
Yeah.
built to be sales led and emotion and customers to then do something differently. And no one's really done it, but I think everything is changing and how buying behavior is changing. So we had an opportunity to do so with how we built the product. And yeah, excited to get that out to the market here very soon. We've already gotten some really great feedback and a lot of early signups and all that stuff beyond our
Cool.
just regular sales motion, which is fun.
Hey, I want to have a brief chat with you about this show. Did you know that roughly 60% of listeners aren't actually subscribed to the show on whatever platform they're listening to it on? Now, as you know, algorithms love likes, follows, subscribes, comments, all of that kind of stuff. So if you get value out of the content, you listen regularly, and you want to help others to discover the content as well, please go ahead and follow the show, leave a comment, leave a review. Anything that you want to do there really helps us to grow organically as a show. And while you're at it, go sign up for the companion newsletter that goes out every week at digitalcustomersuccess.com. Now back to the show. So I would imagine as part of that, you are probably focused on some pretty hefty digital motions. I mean, part of the PLG model is really focusing on self-serve and making sure that folks get onboarded correctly and all that kind of stuff. So can you walk us through a little bit of the tactical kind of boots on the ground of what you're doing digitally to help your customers?
And the way that we approached it, so we tried to think about it very holistically. The first thing is we try to make sure our product is built in a way that reduces as much friction as possible and makes it easy for customers to do things. So we've built in templates and guides and things of that nature to make it really easy to get started, to get things up and running, to have things from day one. And then what we've done is we kind of mapped out a few different journeys. So the user journey from initially landing on our website to either we have a click sign up, we have a AI-based sign up that you can also do, which is pretty cool, to getting into your platform and then what you do from there. But then we also have a lot of digital motions surrounding how we do our go-to-market outreach. So the different groups of prospects and customers that we want to target, how do we want to activate them? And then once we get them into our environments, whether that's website, sign up, and the platform, how do we want to continue that process? So there's a lot of motions around that. I think some of the most important things that we've found so far in terms of building all this up is, outside of the product being really flexible around these things, is that you have a ton of really good analytics around what people are doing, where they are. So you can build those specific touch points and automations around that. So if we don't know who's getting stuck where, if we don't know where people are specifically in that journey and what they're doing and what is converting to success in terms of, and we also identified success metrics for usage and these things, then it's really hard to build anything around it, right? You're kind of just fumbling in the dark there. So that's been a big project to make sure that's all in place. So now we can really see that journey and we can see where does the customer need help. And then we're using our own automation tech within Revsetter to engage those users and help them at the right spots with the right things and make sure those sequences are playing out in the right way.
Yeah. You just mentioned the digital CS sweet spot, which is basically a thing I came up with where it's Venn diagram basically. And it's like that intersection between customer journey, automation, and healthy data. I don't think healthy data really exists anywhere, but like healthy-ish data.
Healthy-ish data.
Yeah, like that's the intersection there is like where the sweet spot is for digital programs to really flourish. Because, you know, you miss in any one of those three and it's like it's an uphill battle all the way.
It is for sure, because you're kind of throwing spaghetti on the wall at that point. Okay, well, let's try this, let's try that, but you don't really see what's happening and why not.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's a great way of describing it as well, with that kind of those three elements of it and how they intersect.
I'm a new Revsetter customer on your PLG motion or whatever. I sign up, and what is my experience? Are you tackling things in product or email or SMS or like what are your vehicles?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're doing a few different things. So as a new customer, you sign up. Like I said, there's two ways of signing up. You go through a few onboarding steps. It takes 2 minutes to do. As soon as you come into the platform, you'll have value for you right there. So you come in, let's say you sign up. I just want to try this thing out. Here's one of my customers. Click go. 2 steps of onboarding, and they're in the platform, and we're already enriching those customers with our AI and then our data app, so infographics, news, competitors, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So the way that we then start engaging with you is in-app. We're going to help you identify different things that based off of some of the onboarding information you provide us. Let's say you're a CSM, you're revenue focused, so you drive renewals and expansion. Then when you come in, we're kind of guiding you to specific available templates, journeys that are available, automations that you can set up, as well as things that you should do from a workflow perspective that will potentially help you using activities or company mapping, whatever it might be. And then as you start going through this, we'll have different kind of touch points through email, through your preferred communication methods. So for example, you can say, I want to link up my Slack or my Teams or something else where I can start setting up notifications, which you can then leverage, whether that's set up notifications, or AI generated ones, or our kind of journey flow notifications. So those are the main vehicles that the customer will kind of see us or engage with us, will be through email, in-app primarily, and then some, if they wish, through some of their other kind of day-to-day workflows, which for a lot of people these days is either Slack or Teams, essentially.
Sure. Yeah. That's cool. I love it. Yeah. When you started describing kind of the onboarding, it got me down this thought kind of rabbit hole of it's so important to make that first impression when a new user signs in. And it can be really hard to do, but like providing that instant amount of value. Again, I'm going to use HubSpot as an example because I was in there earlier today. I added a company that I'm working with to HubSpot, and I just added the domain name and it filled in all the rest. I got the address, I got the logo, I got the, and it's those kinds of experiences are critical, right? But also I would imagine from a founder's perspective, and given the tools that we have and the artificial intelligence that's available to us and the low cost of development these days, that those kinds of experiences are much easier to build than even 5-6 years ago, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's definitely exactly the case. And like you said, and that's part of why I mentioned, as you land, you get all the infographics, you get the logo, you also get things like, here are the key people, here are this customer in the news and all these things. And what is interesting as from a development standpoint and as a founder, you kind of, as you start building tech, and I'm not a technology guy myself, I'm not a developer and code, but as a founder, you learn a lot about it if you want to, right?
Yeah.
And it's one of the most important things to do those things well today versus 5-6 years ago is the way that you've actually created and structured your baseline data models in your platforms. Basically, think about the foundation that you built the house on top of.
Yeah.
A few years ago, even just 3-4 years ago, when you go back 10 years, if you look at Gainsight or something, the available foundations to build are very different than the way that you can do it today. But once you build that foundation, it's really hard to start going back and redoing things in the house because you've already put that in place.
Yeah.
So we put it in place where it's really flexible, which makes that development easier and faster for us, more agile. But that's, I think, where sometimes, and I speak to some other founders, medium-sized, smaller, bigger companies that have been trying to make that shift from their current motion to PLG, but it's been extremely hard from a product perspective to be able to redo that foundation, even though it's always easy to say, hey, you can just rewrite the entire code, but it's extremely hard. The longer you've been around, the whatever foundation you've set, everything built on top of it, untangling that is really difficult. So I think that's why you don't see it as often, and that's why we see, if you go to G2, for example, and look at this, the average time to set up is 2.3 months. The average time to value is 6.8 months.
Wow.
If not even longer, right? Which is crazy to me. They almost spend half a year to just start seeing value from your CS platform.
Yeah.
That shouldn't be the case.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think we're all familiar with the Gainsight example. They've been around forever. We are heavy Gainsight users, but it does, I don't want to knock them, but it does take an admin team to run it and to maintain it and those kinds of things. And it's got to be a hard place for them to be in at the moment because they're sitting on top of this tech stack that's crazy powerful, but it's also like showing its age a little bit.
Right. Yeah.
Sorry, Gainsight. I don't mean to insult you. Please sponsor the podcast.
I will. And Gainsight are great. I think it always come for us as newcomers into the market, or early at least, versus a Gainsight, like they kind of trailblaze the space and open it up for everyone. And I think it's a great tool. But I think it's and which makes sense because they're focusing there. It's very enterprise focused, and we're
Right.
seeing more and more legacy play like Tatango wants to be there.
Yep.
Catalyst, obviously now acquired there.
Yep.
Lionheart, others are really focused on enterprise, which makes a lot of sense. But what has always been interesting to me as someone that's advised work with also a lot of SMBs,
Yeah.
growth stage companies, and kind of mid to lower mid market, there's an abundance of companies there that need CS platforms or tech and to get out of just being in the CRM or in a bunch of spreadsheets. But the legacy players are not really folks are built for them. They're built for something different, and they're
Yeah.
really good at that. So that's an area we try to focus in
Yeah.
on a lot, and where PLG will be also an additional benefit where,
It'd be huge because I
we
mean,
can,
you've got a ton of organizations that are just not ready to invest in an enterprise level
yeah.
CSP. They're not ready to invest in that kind of technology. And in instances where you have one or two CSMs or you have the first CSM in an
Yes.
organization, it's an ideal move to just get going on this
Mhm.
stuff rather than just again like building this foundation in spreadsheets or Google Docs that you then later have
Exactly. Yeah.
to rip out.
And then you can just grow your way into
Mm-hmm.
that. And that's where it's always interesting. Like we have, teams with 50, 60, whatever number of CSMs, and some with one or two,
Yeah.
and their lives are very different. So you
Right.
need to be able to kind of adjust for both. But it is a very different thing. And we do our CS audits with our new customers, which we do. Their challenges and where their gaps are always very different when we're talking about
Mm-hmm.
a 1,000 employee company or a 50 or 100 employee company. They live in different realities, but they
They
all
really
have kind of
do.
similar things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm always seeing digital things in the wild. I'll get an email flow from somebody or I'll get whatever, especially in B2C. There's so much,
Mhm.
B2C is so good at the digital thing. But are there
Yeah.
some cool kind of digital motions that you've observed in the wild where you're like, oh man, we should do that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely some interesting ones. I think one that's top of mind for a lot of people now, regardless of what they think about the product itself is good or not. There's different values of it, but retention.com's new product, the RB2B, which is a very straightforward product, right? Someone comes to your website, you see who it is, they Slack you. I think they have a pretty interesting motion there in terms of the emails, and it's a lot of email based stuff, but the follow ups and kind of as you get active, as you get onboarded, as
Yeah.
you progress throughout the trials and whatnot. So I think they've done a good job with that motion. Again, product aside, I think it's also what I think is interesting today as well is we're seeing a lot more discussions about automated flows, and especially on the sales side today. So if you look at Clay, for example, and what they're doing or enabling companies to kind of experiment with and doing, and I've seen some interesting motions there in terms of from early lead to leveraging some of the integrations in Clay and personalization and
Yeah.
AI and getting those sequences out. So I've seen some interesting things there. But I think it's still we don't see enough of it on the CS side. I think the CS side is still a lot of emails based off on triggers,
Yep.
and then that's kind of the extent of digital for companies, and they feel like they've done digital at that
Yep.
point, where there's actually a lot more that goes
Mhm.
into it and that you can do with it, and a lot of more ways you can structure it. But I see it more on the sales side, specifically around that automation of how do we basically how do we need less SDRs and less
Yeah.
AEs to do the same
Yeah.
output? Kind of flows around that. I see that a ton, but I wish I saw more of it on the CS side, and especially in B2B in general. Like I said, B2C is great. There's a bunch of cool stuff, and they're pretty good at activating
Hmm.
people and doing these things. Whereas in B2B, it's still a little bit more rigid,
I
I
agree.
think,
Yeah,
and
I agree.
siloed.
And there's a weird hesitance to act like B2C in B2B.
Mhm.
It's like
Yes.
uncool or unprofessional or something like that. And I'm just like, what, just have some fun
Yeah.
with your customers. What's the harm in that?
Right.
I will say that we've
Yeah.
tried to have fun with our customers in Germany. Again, no offense to German customers, but
Very different. I work in German
they need
markets.
stuff straight and like to the point and not so much fluff. And I get it. It's
Yes.
cool. Whatever. I'm
Yeah.
part half Austrian, so I get it. It's cool.
I guess, yeah, a
It's
little
cool.
bit in the blood
Yeah,
there.
exactly.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I work global, so it's very different. Like German market, Japanese market, for
Yeah.
example, Japanese customers also very much business oriented. But then, yeah, you have US, very different, UK. Like, it's very interesting when you work with global markets, how different they
Yeah.
are, you expect, but it's extremely
And if
different.
you are operating globally, you have to it's not a one and done in terms of your digital motions. Like, you got to be regionally sensitive.
Absolutely.
I don't think you have to go
Absolutely.
crazy by country. In some cases, maybe, but like region by region for
Mm.
sure. I once
Yeah.
I did sales training at Dell. So I was at Dell for 5 years,
Mm.
and there was a
Yeah.
stint there where I don't know how I got involved with this, but I would do these sales training sessions for our Japanese teams. And I'd
Yeah.
be this was back in the day where you went into the office, but I'd be in the office at 10, 11, 12 at night or whatever, running these calls. And what always struck me at first, it was really jarring, but then I just realized it was a cultural difference. Is like in Japan, it's like the ultimate form of respect is not to like interrupt the facilitator and to be
Right.
very quiet and attentive. But this was
Mhm.
pre-webcam too. This was all conference calls and stuff. So it was like I was just talking to an empty office
Silence.
basically. And at the end they were like, thank you. I don't know if you got anything out of
Yeah.
that, but this is very interesting,
Yeah.
the cultural differences.
It is
I just dated
definitely, and it's
myself, way dated myself, pre-webcam. Jesus.
pre-work. Yeah. But hey, some people that's just pre-COVID,
True.
but for them it was like more uncomfortable to do video for
Mm-hmm.
people. Hopefully not too many was there. But yeah, it is. I think the culture thing is really
Mm-hmm.
interesting. Even just how companies operate and what they do. We have some good amount of customers from India, for
Mm.
example, tech companies that haven't really had access to the legacy CSPs haven't been really a good fit for them for different reasons. And we got a few in and then expanded and whatnot. And they have a ton of tech companies, but the things that are important for them over there in terms of just the way that they get billed, the different type of
Yeah.
integrations are important, the flows that they expect is different than the US market. And then how you kind of communicate that and work with them on that is also
Mm-hmm.
different. So it's always an interesting learning experience working with companies or with people in different markets and different regions. You get to appreciation for the nuances and you get a better understanding for them. But two, there's actually a ton of
Yeah.
opportunity for any company, right? That's thinking about that, hey, to really try to understand the challenges or the expectations within a specific market and adapt to that in some ways, that can be a huge growth opportunity
Mm-hmm.
for you as a business. So, and I think I always find that interesting once we tap into new places, and I've done that with my career, how much opportunity there is because it's untapped, because no one's really
Sure.
taking time to understand it.
Yeah, I mean, so many companies are focused on North America, obviously, North America, EMEA, Australia, maybe, but the rest of the world is huge.
Yes, yeah, yeah. I saw somewhere like you talked about India. I
Mm,
think it was 750,000 tech companies there. Or when we're talking about big additional markets, yeah, there's a few out
yeah,
there for
definitely
sure.
underserved. Yeah, amazing. Well, look, I've really enjoyed this conversation. As we kind of start to wrap up, I'd love to kind of understand what you do to keep yourself kind of in the know and what podcasts, books, videos, whatever you pay attention to on a regular basis, if you can, because I'm sure you're in founder mode all the time. But
Yeah, yeah, for sure. No, I do definitely try to gauge as much as possible what's going on out there. I read a bunch of different things. And in particular, I like to listen to, whether that's podcasts like this one, of course. The Top Line podcast
mm,
is pretty good as well. The Customer Success podcast is really good. And honestly, I try to also, the way that I try to consume a lot of it as well is through different communities that I'm part of, whether that's working with some other CS kind of alum, let's say, that have been around for a long time and kind of sharing ideas through some of the meetups and things that we do. So that's kind of the way I try to do it is really engage with a lot of different people, along with listening to a lot of good podcasts that are out there. And occasionally, if I have time, I'll try to read a couple of books as well. But between founder mode
it's
and three
tough.
kids under six, you don't get as much reading
Hmm.
time as back in the
Yeah,
day. The audio versions are always good.
audio version. Yeah,
Yeah, there's a bunch of good stuff out there for
yeah,
sure.
that's cool. Any shout outs you want to give?
Oh, and there's a bunch of people I'll highly recommend. Yeah, it's always early when it comes to shout outs, but I'll give one shout out because I just love what she's building and doing, and that's
Oh
Jan
yeah.
Young, that was building CX Exchange and really working with a lot of CS leaders to take them that next step into revenue leaders. She's also built a really good community there as well. So I love what she's doing. She's great. Daphne Costa, or at HubSpot, she has just a ton of great content, great follow, and a lot of good ideas. But yeah, there's a bunch of other people I could definitely mention, but those two ladies.
Those two are excellent mentions. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's cool. Well, look, where can people find you and engage with you?
Yeah, I think easiest thing, follow me, and I put out a lot of content on LinkedIn, so follow me there. DM me, of course, just email me as well, and kind of you'll find me on Revsetter and anything Revsetter related. So just my email's easy, haydar@revsetter.com. If anyone that wants to just kind of ping me directly, but again, otherwise LinkedIn is usually the best forum to follow some of my content or reach out as well.
Amazing. Thanks so much for the time. I've really enjoyed this chat. It was really good. I always love chatting with founders, and what you and the team are building are really cool. And yeah, thanks for the insights as well.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Alex. Thanks for having me on. It was great. And like I said in the beginning, I was excited for the conversation, and I really appreciate a lot of the topics that we had a chance to touch on.
No worries. No worries. Talk soon. Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Digital CX Podcast. If you like what we're doing, consider leaving us a review on your podcast platform of choice. If you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment down below. It really helps us to grow and provide value to a broader audience. You can view the digital customer success definition word map and get more information about the show and some of the other things that we're doing at digitalcustomersuccess.com. This episode was edited by Lifetime Value Media, a media production company founded by our good mutual friend Dylan Young. Lifetime Value aims to serve the content, video, audio production needs of the CS and post-sale community. They're offering services at a steep discount for a limited time, so navigate to lifetimevaluemedia.com, go have a chat with Dylan, and make sure you mention the Digital CX Podcast sent you. I'm Alex Turkovich. Thanks so much for listening. We'll talk to you next week.